What's up, runners? If you had ACL surgery, maybe you finished physical therapy, but still can't run without knee pain, this video is for you. I recently worked with a runner in her 40s who completed 6 months of traditional physical therapy, cleared by her surgeon, cleared by her PT, and still couldn't run without pain. Every time she tried to run, knee pain, fear, feeling like the knee was going to buckle on her, she felt unstable, zero confidence. And she was basically told, yeah, your knee is fine. Just go to the gym, just run, you'll figure it out. That advice ruins more recoveries than people realize. In this video, I'm going to show you why traditional PT often fails runners after ACL surgery, the real reason her knee kept hurting, and the exact step-by-step system I used to help her run again pain-free. So if you're new here, I'm Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist, run coach, and I specialize in helping runners get back to running after injuries and surgeries, especially runners in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. And post-rehab runners who are cleared but not truly ready. And this is the gap between rehab and performance. This is one of the biggest problems in modern rehab. So cleared to function, but not ready to run. Here's the truth. Most runners never here after ACL surgery or any other type of knee surgery, to be honest. You can be cleared to walk, climb stairs, get out of a chair, right? Sit to stands or basic squats, use some light TheraBand, and still not be able to run. That's exactly what happened with her. Her PT helped her with her basic range of motion, early rehab strength, daily function. But running is not just daily life basic function. Running is high impact, repetitive load, single leg force, 2 to 3 times body weight. Every time your knee hit with every step, right? So if you're a 150-pound runner, that's 300 to 450 pounds of force. So when a knee is underprepared for the load, pain shows up immediately, right? So what was actually missing? When she came to me, she had residual quad weakness, strength asymmetries or imbalances, fear of re-injury, poor single leg control, poor power, knee pain with just even a slow jog. But on paper, she was done with PT because she did 6 months of physical therapy. She was going like it was over like 20 sessions or so that she completed. And this is the biggest flaw in traditional rehab. Rehab stops at basic function, but runners, again, need performance. And you go from pain to performance. You got to bridge that gap. Her knee wasn't broken. Again, her knee was just not prepared to handle the demands of running, because running actually is a high impact sport. So step one, we had to reset her mindset, because she was also very fearful that, she was going to get injured. She was going to destroy her knee. It was going to ruin the ACL surgery she had. First thing we worked on was the psychology and mindset, because every time she felt pain while jogging, she thought, my surgery failed. I'm damaging my knee. Maybe I should stop running forever. But the thing is, she had MRI that showed that the ACL was fine, but she did have some degenerative changes around her knee. The thing is that 50% of knee MRI have poor correlation between tissue damage and pain. In fact, there are people with zero pain who have abnormal findings on the MRI. And clinically speaking, pain after ACL surgery does not automatically mean that the surgery went wrong, that there's damage to the ACL graft. What it often means is deconditioning, the nerve system sensitivity, and lack of load tolerance, right? Especially when you want to get back to running, you have to develop load tolerance to the leg. And this is huge for runners, because fear alone can change mechanics and increase pain, right? It could cause more muscle guarding. It could cause you to change your movement patterns as you start protecting the leg. You start favoring the stronger leg. So step 2, rebuilding true runner level strength. Now, this is where most basic physical therapy programs massively underload. She had done, the TheraBand exercises, the light mat exercises, laying on the table, doing the leg raises, the clamshells, the bridges, right? But her knee was not strong enough for the demands of running. So what we actually implemented, right? Progressive strength training, assisted squats, loaded squats, right? So this is when we started adding weights. We started with dumbbells, kettlebells, but then we started progressing onto barbells, doing step-ups, step downs, but also progressing the step downs, right? Going from a 6-inch step, 8-inch step, 12-inch step, doing split squats, right? For single leg strength, lunges, elevated split squats, also known as the Bulgarian split squat. Also doing lateral movements, right? Lateral lunges, rotational lunges to get the knee moving in triplanar, different directions, to load the knee in different directions. Heavy quad strengthening, right? Also strengthening the quad in different ranges, right? In the deep squat, in a kneeling position, right? Doing reverse Nordic curls. Also doing calf strengthening, also doing glute strengthening, hip thrusters, single leg bridges, barbell hip thruster, good mornings, deadlifts, right? Because the knee does not work alone, right? And oftentimes the posterior chain, when it's weak, the posterior chain is going to be the glute, the hamstring, the calves. If the posterior chain is weak, oftentimes that's going to lead to more stress on the knee, which is going to make the knee have to be the middleman that takes up, weakness from the hip, weakness from the ankle. And now the knee is getting stressed out because either you're lacking some ankle strength or mobility, or you're lacking some hip mobility or strength. And now the knee is like caught in the middle between these two upset joints. And now it's already in a weakened state. And now it's getting even more aggravated. Another thing that a lot of physical therapists miss is heavy lifting, right? And oftentimes they'll do the moderate, right? They'll do the high repetition work, but then they often miss the heavy lifting. So heavy lower body lifting, I recommend most runners, unless you're in the sport of powerlifting, you don't have to do 1 rep max, but 3 to 5 rep max. Like most runners are fine just doing a 3 rep to 5 rep max at least once a week for the lower body day. So heavy lower body, take a weight that, for example, let's say you're doing barbell squats, where you'll fatigue at the 5th rep. If you don't know how to find it, obviously you have to test yourself. So you grab the weight. If you're able to do more than 5 reps, that wasn't your 5 rep max. So rest a few minutes and then retest again until you get to the point where you lift a weight that you could barely finish the full 5 reps, or same thing with the 3 rep max, right? So that way you're at your lifting weight that's your true 3 rep max or 5 rep max. And then you'll use that weight and you do different variations. Like you might do a 3 rep max box squat, 3 rep max front squat, 3 rep max back squat. And then you'll retest at least once every 6 to 8 weeks to see, have you got stronger with your 3 rep max or your 5 rep max? So it's also very important to test yourself to see, are you actually making progress? Are you actually getting stronger? So you have your main, and the same thing, you also test the deadlift. You also want to do the same thing with a deadlift. And I understand with the deadlift, there's also different variations. You got your sumo deadlift, your stiff-legged deadlift. You got your elevated deadlift, right? Deadlift from a deficit. Again, you'll pick different exercise variations, but you still want to train heavy, both the squat and the deadlift. And then you got your accessory lifts. This is where you work on the weak links, right? This is where you do like a leg extension, a leg curl, hip abduction, right? Training these weak links, these smaller muscle groups, or these accessory movements, patterns that are very important to strengthen as well. This is where you might do higher repetition work. Maybe you're doing 20 reps, 30 reps, etc. This could be in conjunction with the main lift. So you have your main lift and then your accessory lifts on one day. And then on a separate day, you might do a combined day. We do like more moderate lifting where it's like 8 to 12 rep max, and you're maybe doing upper body, core, lower body, like a full body kind of circuit. But regardless, you want to progressively get better week after week, try to progressively overload, try to get yourself stronger, and then formally test yourself every 6 to 8 weeks. So many PT programs avoid heavy loading. And again, in the very beginning, you maybe just had knee surgery, ACL surgery. You don't want to do heavy lifting in the first few weeks of rehab. You just had knee surgery. But now if it's been 6 months, right, you're technically done with physical therapy, you need to start introducing heavy lifting. Right, be smart about it, test your limits, see where you're at, right? And if you're feeling pain, let's say you're feeling pain with the squat, modify the squat. It's okay to do a partial squat. You don't have to do a parallel 90-degree squat, or you don't have to do a deep squat. If your knee is still you're feeling intense severe knee pain, and when you do a deep squat, then do the squat in a shallow range of motion, the partial squat, or a box squat, what have you, all right? Until your knee gets healthier and is able to tolerate deeper ranges. See, but runners need both strength capacity for tolerance, right? You need to develop that maximal strength, so when you get back to faster running, it's able to handle the demand, because the faster you run, the higher the impact loading is. A slower run, it's a little lower impact. It's still impact, but the faster you run, let's say you really want to get after speed, you also want to make sure your legs are strong enough to handle that speed. So then we go into the third phase that's also missed, rate of force development, RFD, and power, or plyometrics. This is another missing piece in traditional rehab. See, power and rate of force development is so important to developing athleticism and running. And if you want to run fast, right, and I'm not just talking about being a hobby jogger, going at that slow, sexy pace. I'm talking about, booking it, running fast. Don't just stick with the light TheraBand exercise or moving your body slow all the time. There's a time to go slow, but there's also a time to go fast. So we added speed squats. This is where you explode up, try to move the weight as fast as possible, right? You're doing a squat, explosive, or deadlift, a speed deadlift, speed lunges, speed Bulgarian split squat. It's almost like you're about to jump off when you're doing those exercises. So typically you're doing a 50 to 60% of your 1 rep max, or if you didn't test a 1 rep max, maybe use a 3 rep max, 50 to 60% of that. So the plyometric progression, right? You can start with just squatting in place, box jumps, drop jumps. And plyometrics is another part of power training or explosive training or jump training that complements the speed training or the dynamic lifting. So going back to the jump progression, right? So you could jump in place, do short reps or maybe 3x5 reps. But as you get stronger, you're going to build up to doing 40 reps or like 4 sets of 10 reps of jumps. And then you could do different box heights. Maybe start with a 12-inch box, then you progress to a 16-inch box, then a 20-inch box, 24-inch box, etc. Ideally, you have access to a plyometric box where you could just kind of flip it and rotate it, where it has different heights you could jump onto. You could also do drop jumps where you jump off the box, go from two-legged jumping to one-legged jumping, so single-leg box jump. Lots of fun to be had there. But again, if you're a complete beginner to like jump training, start with two-legged jumping, like just squat jump in place, and then add a box, a small box, and progress up from there. And then you want to do this type of jump training or explosive training at least 2 times a week. It could be part of your warm-up or in between your heavy lifting or its own separate day. Like you do it on the day you're doing the speed training, like the speed squats and the speed lunges, right? But the key is to rebuild your confidence, and this is what we did for her when I was working her, and her impact tolerance, because she was now getting more confident. She could move fast and tolerate landing from jumping, which is going to really translate beautifully to running, because running essentially is a series of single leg hops. When you're running, you're single leg hopping as you're running, which a lot of runners don't think about it that way, right? They're like, oh, wow, you're actually on a single leg and you're just kind of jumping forward every time. So motor control and movement strategy. She was also subconsciously guarding her surgical leg, or the leg that had the ACL surgery. She was putting offload and she was shifting her weight. So when she would squat, I would see her kind of deviate towards the stronger side. Or when she would land from a jump, she would put more weight on the stronger side. And then when I looked at her running gait, she would also kind of compensate. Again, subtly doing some shifting of her torso or pelvis to the stronger side. So we train single leg stability, balance exercises, landing mechanics, using a mirror for feedback, muscle activation sequencing, and running from under load, right? You know, doing easy running, slow running, not just do exercise and hope and transfers, but, you know, get feedback, using a cadence to retrain her, a metronome, to retrain her cadence. So she was putting more equal weight, that's left to right symmetry every time her foot was hitting the ground. So she was hitting a beat on the metronome while she was running on a treadmill. So looked at the overlooked factor, lifestyle and recovery, right? One thing most rehab programs completely overlook is lifestyle. See, recovery doesn't just happen during workouts. It happens in the other 23 hours of your day. So sleep is non-negotiable. Prioritize 7.5 hours to 9 hours of sleep per night, right? You want a consistent sleep schedule, the same sleep and wake time, even on the weekends. It's because sleep equals a tissue repair, hormone balance, and nervous system recovery. It was hard for her because, you know, she liked to socialize in the weekend, liked to go out, have drinks with friends. But I told her, hey, at least in this time period where we're working together to actually help you rebuild your knee, let's be strict about sleep. You can still see your friends, but really be strict about having the same sleep and wake time even on the weekends. Because poor sleep leads to higher pain sensitivity, more stiffness, and slower healing. If you're undersleep, if you're sleep deprived, your knee will feel worse, even with good rehab. Nutrition, focus on whole, nutrient-dense foods, right? I told her to avoid the junk food temporarily, eliminate the junk food, right? Reduce foods that left her feeling inflamed or sluggish, get adequate protein intake for tissue repair and strength rebuilding. And we aim for a target of about 0.7 to 1 gram per protein, so essentially a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And some people struggle with digesting protein, so find sources that work: yogurt, whey, tofu, etc. And for her, I also recommended doing essential amino acids as well as another form to just make sure she had getting enough protein in her body. And then eating enough carbs to fuel her training, because recovery doesn't happen when you're on a low carb situation. If you're like trying to do ketogenic, don't typically recommend that when you're trying to build muscle, recover after surgery. And also making sure you're properly hydrated, getting enough fluids, drinking electrolytes to support joint and muscle health. Because under-eating is equal to under-recovering. See, very common in injured runners. And unfortunately, a lot of women tend to under-eat because they're afraid of getting too bulky or getting too heavy. But healing from surgery plus training is higher recovery demands. If protein calories are too low, slower strength gains plus lingering pain. The other thing we worked on is stress management. And not just mental stress, but physical stress too. Long work hours. Right? She was also working like a desk job. Life stress, poor recovery habits all add load to the body. High stress keeps the body in a guarded and tense state. So that increases muscle tightness, stiffness, and pain perception. We also make sure she interrupted prolonged sitting, right? Especially when you're sitting long hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a day with the knee bent can increase knee stiffness, especially in busy professionals, right? So implement frequent movement breaks every 1 or 2 hours. Get out of that desk, go to a standing desk, stretch, walk around. Mobility resets, right? Do some mobility drills for your knee. And avoid staying in one position for hours. Or even when you're traveling, right? If you're on a plane, get up out of the flight. In the aisle, obviously don't stop the plane, but get on the aisle, stretch your knee, move around, walk for a few minutes. Or if you're driving somewhere, stop at a pit stop or something, stretch your knee out. So nervous system intention, stress equals more guarding of the surgical leg, and guarding is going to lead to altered mechanics, more knee discomfort. So we used breathing exercises to downregulate the nervous system, relaxation strategies to reduce baseline muscle tension, and better breathing also improves sleep quality. So breaking the pain-free cycle, the pain-fear cycle, because fear is such an important part when people get fear getting re-injured. So pain, fear, and guarding equals more stiffness, more pain. So we address the mindset and recovery habits together, improve daily recovery routines, not just focusing on the rehab exercise alone. So the big takeaway, her knee didn't just improve from exercise, it improved because her lifestyle finally supported recovery, right? She gave her body that healing environment it needed to heal, right? The sleep, new nutrition, the stress management, right? Especially important for runners in 30s, 40s, and 50s, busy professionals juggling work, stress, and training. Because you could have the perfect rehab plan, but if you have poor sleep, high stress, and bad recovery habits, it's going to slow your progress. You're like, man, I'm not getting the results that I would have hoped after doing, 3 months of this focused runner's knee rehab recovery. So step 5, the return to run bridge. This is the biggest mistake after ACL rehab. Runners get told, you're cleared, go run. That is like finishing shoulder rehab and then throwing a 90-mile-per-hour fastball pitch immediately. Instead, we use a graded run-walk progression. 5-second run, 55-second walk, and you can see here going to 10-second, 15-second, then eventually 30-second, then 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, even 10 minutes, and then continuous running, and then building up to 2 miles. But some of the key rules for this, right? We're doing progressing every week or two. We did skip some steps if they were too easy for her. Key rules, right? The pain had to be less than 2 out of 10 in her knee, no swelling flare-ups, easy effort only, and mandatory rest days in between run workouts, no back-to-back run workouts while we were recovering her knee health in the early phases. And this is smart loading, not ego running. Not, hey, I have to run 7 days a week because I love running because I'm a maniac. No, you could take some recovery days, relax. And then you obviously doing some cross training. So she was able to go on the bike on other days to work on her cardio fitness, biking, rowing, elliptical. Big fan of those for cross training, and also walking as well. And then the 5 return to run tests I use before full running, I assess, are you able to walk pain-free, right? Are you able to walk long distances, right? Can you walk like 30 minutes? Can you walk without limping? Are you able to walk those long distances with no flare-ups in the past 24 to 48 hours? And can you sustain that for at least a week or so? Do you have full range of motion, right? No knee, are you able to bend your knee properly, straighten your knee, and is asymmetrical, right? When you compare side to side, you have full knee extension, full knee flexion range of motion, right? No stiffness versus the other side. And when the knee flexion, can you touch heel to butt? Can you go to a kneeling position? Is it comfortable for you? And if not, when you go back and address it. We also looked at strength symmetry, to be at least 80% or more strength. The single leg sit to stand, right? If you're able to use a chair or a box, do 22 reps with good form, which indicates good fatigue resistant strength. And ideally, both sides are equal. But if you have a big difference on one side, that means you have to work on that, right? Ideally, they're within 10% of each other when you're counting the rep, left versus right side. Are you able to do a step down with good control? It's going to be based on your height. They have different step heights that's recommended based on your height. But essentially, for her, I think we used a 6-inch step. She was on the shorter side, but regardless, she was able to do it with good control, good hip stability, knee stability, ankle stability. She wasn't using her arms to try to rebalance herself on the step down test. Quad index, we did the 3 rep max. And I'm going to put this a leg extension, right? So we tested this on the leg extension machine, and that there was side-to-side symmetry. Again, that she was able to lift 3 rep max on a single leg, so single leg extension compared left to right side. We also tested the leg curl and the leg press as well. And then also, can she do a glute bridge, single leg glute bridge symmetry as well? Because we also make sure she had good hip strength, right? So this is a single leg glute bridge. And then minimal to or no swelling, right? No puffiness, no warmth, no reactive joint response. And the hop test, right? Was she able to, a hop test is jumping test essentially. First, could she do double leg hops pain-free? But then could she do single leg hops controlled? Single leg hop for distance, hops as far as possible on one leg, landing on the same leg and stick the landing, no extra hop. And you compare the distance from side to side, right? You make sure you have a measured like track or hallway where you can measure the distance that you're jumping. Ideally, it's already pre-measured, so you don't have to get too stressed out about it. But obviously, you could just get out a ruler or whatever, measure it, count your feet. The other one is a triple hip hop for distance, right? 3 consecutive maximal distance hops on the one leg, finishing with stable landing. The triple crossover hop for distance, 3 consecutive hops on one leg, crossing over a 15 centimeter wide line with each hop. Again, you're measuring the distance. And the 6-meter timed hop, single leg hop as fast as possible on the one leg over a 6-meter distance. And you're seeing how fast you finish that compared side to side. And then you could do 3 trials and get the best of 3 for each of the leg, right? And you want to get some similar side-to-side confidence with the hop testing, 80% or greater for straight ahead running, which is what most runners want to do. But if you are a multi-sport athlete, maybe you play basketball, soccer, a sport that involves multiple changes of directions, or even combat sports, right? You want 90% or greater for return to those multi-directional sports that involve, again, those changes in direction. Tennis as well is another example. So why her knee finally improved? Her knee did not improve from just rest alone. It improved because we progressively loaded the tissue, strengthened her to tolerate the demands of running, trained power and control, address compensations, and build confidence gradually. Not just random rehab, not just random guesswork, not just stop running for a few months and get back to it a few months from later. Like, you just go to the gym for a few months, you'll figure it out on your own. Right. So key lesson for runners after ACL surgery. If you had ACL surgery and still can't run, it does not mean your surgery failed. It does not mean your knee is permanently damaged or broken. It does not mean you should quit running. Most of the time, your rehab just stopped at basic function and never progressed to high-level performance. As a PT and run coach working with runners in 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, I see this all the time. So bonus gift, if you're a runner who finished physical therapy, but you still have knee pain when you're running, or feel cleared but not confident, right? There's a smarter bridge between rehab and running. This is exactly what I built inside my athletic runner method, right? 3 runs per week programming, strength training, smart load progression, and injury resilient programming. Also looking at mobility as well and recovery, the holistic approach. So if you want help rebuilding your knee the right way, you can apply for a free consult call, link in the description. Because ACL surgery should not be the end of your running story. With the right progression, it could be the beginning of a smarter one.